Oh, I already said that. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's just someone with an impressive set of Tableau skills who just saved the day by fixing a broken dashboard. Woo, right? You can be the superhero that you always knew you were inside. I'm going to show you how. Imagine swooping in on a dashboard that's been decimated by the supervillain. That's the supervillain. His name is Poor Dashboard Design. It's not a very good villain name, I admit. With a flick of your cape, the dashboard's working, and it's better than it was before. This could be you. Hi, I'm Jill. By day, I'm a mild-mannered tech writer who works at Tableau. I write training to help people build dashboards with clever analytics and beautiful visual best practices. And by night, I teach Tableau at a local community college, and I also work with our Service Corps, which means that I go and volunteer at nonprofits and other places that need help with Tableau. So I have a lot of on-the-ground experience, and through that experience, I have found that most people, a lot of the time, don't get to design dashboards with beautiful visual best practices from scratch, starting in a wonderful place with beautiful data that has no problems or any sort of cleaning needed. Instead, they get things like their boss saying to them, Cheryl left, and I don't know what she made, but we need this dashboard, but it's not working, it's broken, can you fix it? And they have no idea where to start or what to do. So, hence this talk was born. Fixing a broken dashboard uses a lot of the same principles as creating a beautiful one, but you're doing it backwards, which is sometimes a lot harder. So, remember that the next time you're trying to create one. You have the easy side of things. Before we get started, I do want to see what other Clark Kents and Carol Danvers we have in the room. So figure out how long you've been using Tableau, and you can round up if you've just started, and then raise your hand with that number. So like this. Yes. Okay. Look around. See the people that are at your level. See the people that are above your level. Note them. Make friends with them at Data Night Out tonight. They can help you. Even though they're here, we all help each other. We can all learn. All right. So even if you just held up one finger, which you'll note I held up one finger, I've been at Tableau for 1 year, you can still become a data superhero, because I am totally a superhero. So let's talk about first what it means to be broken. That's kind of a catch-all word, right? Does it mean this isn't what I asked for? That can mean it's broken. Does it mean it's wrong? Just wrong. Numbers are wrong. Or is it just ugly? Like, you don't know what it's supposed to do. You don't know how to navigate it. It's just not pleasing. No one wants to use it. All of those things could be reasons that your dashboard is broken. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So this isn't what I asked for is kind of code for audience and purpose. The information is wrong or missing. That's troubleshooting. That's a big part of dashboards being broken. And it's too confusing and ugly. Functionality and beauty. Sometimes people think functionality or making things pretty is sort of the like icing on the cake. No, it's the cake. If it doesn't look good and it's not easy to use, no one uses it. And so all your work was for nothing. So it's still really important. Throughout these topics, we're going to focus on the how. How do you approach these things? I'm going to use an example dashboard. It's pretty simple because it's an example. You will undoubtedly have things that are way more complicated than what I'm going to show you today. But what hopefully you're going to get out of this talk is a way to approach those things so that when you start to find those problems, you can then go to your online help, support, some of the other resources that I'm going to talk about and dig down into the problem, but what you have are the tools to start tackling the problem. I will do some step-by-step, and so I'm sure you'll pick up a few tips and tricks that are detailed. So it's not all conceptual, but just so you know, what we're looking at today is how to approach like the framework of dashboard solving. All right. Note that everything that we talk about today is going to be available through a link on my Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. I just created it for TC. You guys are amazing. The TC community, this is my first TC conference, and like Twitter is just, everyone says Twitter's terrible, and I'm like, Twitter's awesome, because my Twitter is just full of TC attendees right now, and it's fantastic. But I will put a link up there with my deck, which will have an appendix that I won't be showing you today, but it'll be up there with all the resources. And then also, I'll have a link to the actual dashboards I use if you want to take them and play with them yourself. Because I want to make sure that you feel like you have a team behind you. You know, where would Batman be without Alfred? Where would Thor be without his hammer? Like, we have resources, there's help. So don't feel like you're alone. You're not a superhero that's all by themselves. So speaking of success, here's another little utility belt, little thing tuck into your utility belt. Here's your steps for superhero success. This is what we're going to do today. We're going to review a broken dashboard. We're going to list the problems that we have with it. We're going to make a plan, always good. We're going to dive in, start fixing. Spoiler alert, our plan is going to change. And then we're going to polish our dashboard. As I mentioned, troubleshooting tends to be one of the hardest parts. So we have another little mini plan inside our plan to get through that. The first thing we're going to do is confirm purpose and audience. As I said, that's really, really important. There is no point in making a beautiful dashboard that works if it's not for the right people and it's not giving them the right information. Verify server and data source permissions. This is also incredibly important. I'm not going to cover it because it's too big. But I do have some resources for you if that is something that you think is an issue with your dashboard, and I encourage you to go to those sessions and, of course, seek out our help and other support things for that. Check data combinations is next. We're going to focus on a join, but anything where your data sources are coming together, you're going to want to make sure that those are working and that you're returning the rows that you actually want. Calculations and filters. This is a huge one. This is where a lot of dashboards fall down, so we'll take a look at that. And then, as I mentioned, the look and the functionality. Is it doing what you want it to do? Now, this looks very lovely and linear, step by step, easy to go through, but we all know real life. We know what it's really like. It doesn't go like that. You start at the top, you get your audience, you fix some calculations, you realize your join's broken, you go fix your join, then you try cleaning up the look and functionality, only realize that the filters aren't right. So our process will look pretty nice and flowy today, but of course, you know, this is an iterative process. You're going to keep discovering things and have to go back. There is not, as someone said to me during the first session, you mean there isn't a miracle cure that just solves it? It's like, no, it wouldn't be an hour-long talk if that was true. So let's get started, because we don't want this to happen. This guy's no good. Oh, that's right, sorry. One more thing before we get started. If you are looking for performance and server and data source issues, here's a couple sessions. These are, okay, that one did just happen, I apologize. But there might be another one related to performance. I'd put performance into your search terms if you're looking for another session here. And then, of course, you have a specific question. The Minute Clinic or the walk-in appointments for doctor are also a good resource for you. All right, now we're going to get started. Okay, so here's the scenario. You work at Superstore, an American company that sells products to heroes, villains, and talented civilians. Your boss is an underling of Lex Lethal, who's in charge of the Secret South, where we are now. And he is supposed to be delivering a dashboard to Empress Midnight, the Overlord. You might notice that these heroes seem a little off-brand. I am following instructions that I am not supposed to use copyrighted people in my talk. So these are my superheroes. You also might not be super familiar with superheroes, which is completely fine. In that case, just imagine this is your typical CEO, 4 VPs or directors type of hierarchy. Think about where you would fall in this company hierarchy, probably somewhere in the middle there. Maybe some of you lucky people are up at the top. But this is your typical org structure. Totally typical. Here's your boss. His name is the Bulk. I'm just skating that line. He is not happy with what he's seen so far. Someone before you created a dashboard and he's not pleased. He's come to you and said, this is broken. And the next thing he said was, this isn't what I asked for. You also might hear things like, this isn't what I wanted to see. I don't know why he made it this way. And my favorite, some of it seems useful. Just that person who's trying to be nice. All of these are clues to you that you have an audience and purpose problem. But it could have been disguised as a this is broken problem. So even if someone tells you, I know it's going to the right people, it has the right information, it's still broken, always do a quick check of audience and purpose. You don't want to do work that you end up having to redo. So make sure you know what the purpose of this deck is. So we're going to see what happens when you don't. All right, so here is a lovely dashboard, super clean, nice, and got really big numbers at top. We all know executives love really big numbers at the top. It's got a map on it, so it's very pretty. And it's got some good information, right? It's got a forecast. It's got sales by segment. That seems important. We can tell that Magic and Tech for Talented Civilians is doing extremely well. I think Harry Potter might have something to do with that. And Vehicles for Heroes is down compared to Vehicles for other segments. So this is great. Like, why is the bulk so crabby? This looks awesome. Well, let's see what he was actually looking for. So here's some great questions that you can use to suss out your audience and purpose. This activity could take you, 25 minutes if you already know the answer. And if you don't know the answer, it might take you a little longer. But I guarantee you it's worth the time that you put into it to make sure that you've got the right audience and the right purpose. So what was in our example, who needs this data? Overlords looking to increase profitable products. So again, VPs looking to increase sales. Directors looking to make sure that our numbers are up. That kind of thing, okay? Well, that dashboard we just looked at, let's take a quick look at it again. Do we see anything on here about overlords or even regions? No, nothing. So, okay, that's a problem, right? Let's go back. What questions are they trying to answer? Who's winning? We all know overlords are extremely competitive, just like sales managers. What states are unprofitable? What specific products are failing? And how much of sales are getting returned? So again, we're going to go back real quick. So we've got some state information. It's sales information, not profit. So that's not really what we were looking for. We've got, let's see, nothing really about products other than those categories, but no specific products that we can really dig into. And there's nothing in here about returned sales. So this is not looking good. We're understanding why our boss is so cranky. What kind of interaction do they want? In this case, they want to click to get more info, and we at Tableau love to hear that. No reports, just click to get more info, deep dive, get down to the specific data. If we go back, let's see if we can do that. Click on California, I can get a number, nothing else changes, nothing really happens here. No, we got no interactivity. You could print this as a PDF, be fine. Same thing would happen. Makes us tabloids just shudder. Do you have more than one audience? Well, the overlord, again, that's our CEO, needs to know who's winning, so she knows who to send to the fiery pit below the boardroom. Now, when you have more than one audience, a lot of times you need more than one dashboard. So that's something to really pay attention to. If you've identified 3 or 4 audiences, you probably definitely need more than one dashboard. Today we're going to get away with one because our overlord just needs some top-level information, and it's the same information that our directors, our VP level people need. So we're going to get away with one, but that's a really important thing to figure out. Finally, what is the dashboard supposed to do? I call this the 5-second and the 5-minute rule. So in 5 seconds, what is this dashboard trying to tell me? Can I identify that really quickly? And then in 5 minutes, can I explore for more insight? What else can I get out of this dashboard if I spend a little time interacting with it? We'll take one more look, and don't worry, everyone who's taking pictures, like, you will be able to get this info, I promise. We'll take one more look here, and we'll notice that we don't have 5 seconds or 5 minutes. We already know we don't have 5 minutes because we can't get any more information than is already here. And in 5 seconds, there's 3 big titles. I don't know what the main thing is that I'm supposed to get from this. So as we can see, we're kind of failing on all fronts. It's good. It's a good way to start. I think we've all had that feeling. So despite this being beautiful, it's not what we want. Luckily, your boss yelled at someone else, and they made something. They managed to get the information about the purpose and the audience, and he made a new dashboard. Let's take a look at that one. Isn't it beautiful? You've all seen dashboards like this. I know you have. You might have made one like this. We've all been there. All right, so quick touch base on our audience and purpose so we can start figuring out what our list of problems are. Remember those steps to success. Now we're trying to start looking at the problems. So who's winning? Well, we do finally have overlords. That's great. Captain Miracle, Legendary Burning Bird are all up there. We've got sales and profit. Since you're on Lex Lethal's team, you already know that those numbers are wrong. So that's, again, a really good place to start. What states are unprofitable? We do have a map. It's not labeled. It says map. So we don't know what that information is telling us. What specific products are failing? We've got products. We've got specific products. Very large leprechaun. $3.02 in negative profit. Okay, great. But we can't really do a lot to get down into any kind of, like, what if we want to know about more awesome offensive weapons? Nothing changes. And then you may have noticed as I swung over there that a bunch of stuff changed. And that's because this is a hover filter right now. So I can get more information about each overlord, but as soon as I move away from it, it's gone. So not super helpful for our deep dive. Let's see, what else were we looking for? Oh, how much of sales are getting returned? We have returned sales. It appears to be a double bar chart that measures the exact same things. I'm guessing that's not right. So if our overall purpose was to determine bragging rights and what the problem areas are by state and by product, this is not fitting the bill. So we have an officially broken dashboard. So here's our steps again. We're at the step where we're going to make a plan. So here's the 3 things we're going to try to do today. We're going to fix the big numbers, because we know those are wrong. And we're going to fix the return sales, because we can easily see that those are wrong. Oh, excuse me. We're going to make it interactive, because it's kind of got interactivity, but it's not great. And we're going to focus on profit and products, because that's the message that we got from audience and purpose. From our analysis of audience and purpose, we want profit and products. So we're going to dive in and start fixing. Great. Oops. Nope, we've got one more. Because we know the information is wrong. By the way, this superhero's name is Jeez Louise, as in, Jeez Louise, this information is wrong. She's my favorite. All right, so now we'll dive in. So let's get out of full screen. And let's start fixing stuff. So if you remember from that flowchart, the first thing that we were going to look at was our data sources and our joins. So in order to do that, we're just going to do a little bit of setup. We're going to unhide all the sheets. Oop, I'm losing my microphone. So we can see what we got. We're going to click over into data source. We're just going to do the very first, any errors, any red exclamation points that are giving us immediate heart palpitations that something is wrong. No, looks like we have access to everything. Nothing appears to be broken at this point. Awesome. The next thing we're going to do is create the world's simplest visualization. You might be thinking it's a bar chart. No, there's a simpler visualization. It is called number of records. And it's one of my favorites because if you are trying to figure out if your joins and your data sources are coming together correctly, this is one of the easiest ways to see how many rows you're getting back. So right now, we're getting 800 rows back. That is not enough given that you are a national company selling hundreds of products in some time period that is reflected in this dashboard. So you know that's too low. The other thing that you want to check for, and basically what we're doing here is we're looking for what are the answers we already know, and we're going to use those answers to make sure that everything's working. So one is we know that there's more records than this. Okay, so as we start to make changes, we can check on this number. I'm also going to rename it. Why do you go away? I'm going to rename the sheet because sheet 6 is very not descriptive. The next thing that we happen to know, as I mentioned before, is the amount of sales that we did this year. So luckily someone did that for us in the executive overview. Otherwise, we could also just make a new sheet with the information. And we see that Lex Lethal's team did $9,000 in sales. We actually know it's $392,000. So that is a big difference. So those are our two numbers that we're going to use to check as we start trying to fix things. So first thing we're going to fix is we're going to go back to our data source. We have no errors, which is great. But let's take a look and see how our joins are functioning. So we have 3 data sheets that are coming together: orders, overlords, and returns. And we see that the first join, all of the orders are coming through, and then overlords is getting joined into that. That seems great. But for returns, it looks like we're only taking rows that both have returns and orders. Let's see what happens if we make this a left join like the top one. We're going to jump back to our number of records. 9,994. That is a much better number. In fact, we happen to know that is the right number. And again, what we wanted to get here was all of the orders coming in, and then if there's return information, we want that information as well. And so that's why we wanted that left join. Some of you might wonder or notice, because you have very sharp eyes, that that number of records number happens to be over here on the right. It does show up correctly for this because that's how many rows are in this. But if you have millions of rows of data, that number will not show all of them. And so a number of records viz is going to help you really get to the bottom of what your total number is. Did it do anything for our sales? Kinda. We're at 196, so that's better, but it's not 392. So we're not there yet. So join solved one problem, but not all of our problems yet. That's pretty typical. I guess, pie in the sky hoping that just that first thing was going to fix it all. So let's go on to the next thing that's in our flowchart, which is calculations. We're going to start finding all the calculations and getting them solved. So we'll go back to the dashboard. And the one that's jumping out at me right now is that one that's labeled Calc 4. I'm guessing it's calculation, but I have no idea what it is. And so I think I'm going to start with that one. That seems easy. Here's a trick for making sure you get to the right sheet. This particular workbook only has 6 sheets in it, so it's not too bad. You could probably guess that sheet 17 is the sheet we need, but somebody didn't name it very well, so it's kind of hard to figure out. But if you've ever had those workbooks where you're experimenting and you have multiple worksheets that all look the same, this is the best way to make sure you're going to the right one. There's a little tiny button here. It says go to sheet, and you do that, and now you know you're on the sheet that shows up in your dashboard. Okay, so let's take a look at Calc 4. I'm going to edit, I'm going to make it bigger. Oh, good. It uses Calc 3. How helpful. Okay, let's go look at Calc 3. It's a glamorous life, guys, this detective work when you're a superhero. All right, Calc 3. Well, this looks like an actual calculation, so that's good. It's got real words in it. And it says count of order ID returns divided by, or said that backwards, but count of order ID. So all of the orders divided by all of the return orders, okay? We're gonna go ahead and comment, because this looks like what we're trying to do is get to a percentage. So what percentage of orders are returns? Now, I'm specifically commenting for 2 reasons. One is this is a way of leaving breadcrumbs for the person who comes after you. Imagine if your predecessor had actually left a comment that said what this was supposed to be doing, or that previous one was supposed to be doing. Your work would be cut in half because you'd at least know what they were going for, right? And remember, you might be the person that comes afterwards 3 months from now when you have to go back in and you're trying to remember what the heck you did last time. Make your job easy. Leave comments. The other reason that I really like comments, as someone who's not super awesome at math, is that by writing it out in kind of like a story or a sentence, I can really identify what I'm trying to figure out and then work on the calculation. So when I look at this, what it helps me realize is that order ID returns assumes that everything that's in the returns is a return. What if it's not a return? What if there are returns that they said, no, it's not a return? I don't know, and I know my number's wrong, so I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna go back to my data source, and I'm gonna actually look at the data itself. And I can immediately see that yes, no. There are returns in here that didn't get returned. For some reason, someone felt it was important to write no. There's probably also nulls. I know, and we all have data like this, right? So we don't want every row here because it's every return. All right, so that means we need to write another calculation. Now there's a couple things we could do here. We could just write the calculation straight into this box and it would get very, very long because the calculation I'm going to show you is a little bit long. Especially when you're troubleshooting, I really encourage you to have separate calculations. It makes it easier to go back and figure out where the problem is rather than having one giant long calculation that you have to carefully parse. So we're going to go back and create a separate calculation for this. It'll be worth it. Oh, we really got to rename sheet 17. That's really hard to find. Okay, so now for those of you who are new, this calculation might look a little fancy, and it is a little fancy, but you can handle it. Whoops, it's not Calc 3. It's called a case, and so we are looking for, talking about the returned field. When it's yes, then 1, else 0. And we always say and. This is one of my favorite calculations because I feel like I'm a computer programmer with it. But it's really, really simple. And it also, again, responds well to that like type up a little comment. So it's almost saying, when looking at the returned field, and this is how I write my comments. I'm an English major, so I write little stories. When looking at the returned field, look for yes. When it's yes, give me a 1. When it's not, your comments can be shorter than this. Give me a 0. But that's basically what's happening, right? So we get a 1 for every yes. Great. Now, since we know that what we were looking for was a percentage, and that other one was just a count of orders, so it was a number, so we need a number too. So we're going to sum this entire thing. So we're going to sum up all of those ones and get a number of returns. And we're going to call this returned orders. And we're going to say OK. And now we're going to go back into our calculation 3. We're going to replace this nonsense up here. We're going to type returned orders. which already helps us figure out what's happening here, because instead of a long calculation divided by count, it just says returned orders divided by the count of orders. Easy to read, easy to figure out what's happening. We could also add a comment there if we wanted to make it even more clear. And we're absolutely going to name it. Returned orders percentage. Great. Finally, we're back at Calc 4. We started there. Does everyone remember that? It was a long time ago. So now we have returned orders percent times sales. So all this is figuring out is what percent of sales represent returned orders. We're going to rename it. Okay. So looking a little better. It's not a one-to-one bar chart anymore, except for that last one. Can anybody tell me what's still wrong with this visualization? Yes. You're already a superhero. What are you even doing here? The axis has not been synchronized, and so it looks like it's not right still. If we do that, and we get rid of this one, because now they're the same, we don't need it. Now this starts to look like a normal thing, right? Like return sales should be a small part of the bigger sales. Great. Another example of where we started looking for calculations, we ended up fixing a viz so we could confirm that the calculation was correct. We're going to do a quick check to see if there are any other calculations that we need to fix in this workbook. So we're just going to look through our measures. And we've just got the 3 that we just worked on. And the number of records is technically a calculation, but it's done by Tableau, so we don't need to mess with it. So boom, calculations done. Any problems we have now have nothing to do with calculations. So it's time to move to the next thing, which is filters. Filters are probably the biggest problem in dashboards. There are so many of them. They hide in secret places. They interact with each other. They're a mess. So what I usually recommend, oh, the hover filter, it's awful. Speaking of filters. So what I usually recommend with filters is that you get down to 0. Just wipe them out and start over. You can try to start untangling, but it will get real complicated really, really quickly. And by the way, just to note, we do know that we're still not, everything's not fixed because that sales number is still wrong. So let's go into dashboard and actions. Here we can see that hover filter. We're just going to remove it. We're not going to try to fix it right now. We're just going to remove it, start fresh. We're going to make sure that show actions for all sheets in this workbook is checked so that we're looking at all the filters for this, all the actions, I should say, for this workbook. Great. So that's good, but didn't fix our sales problem, which means we have filters somewhere else. So we'll start by going to the executive overview. I'm going to use that little shortcut. And look, we've got 2 filters on here. Measure names, which I'll show really quickly. This is a filter that's used to build crosstabs or tables. And you can see that it's just all the different measures that are possible in this workbook. And we only wanted to show profit and sales. So that's great. Segment, what's going on with segment? Aha. All we're showing are heroes and villains in terms of segment. If you remember, segment was something that was really important in one of those earlier dashboards, but didn't show up in our audience and purpose, so we don't need it. What happens if we include everything? Now we get the right number. So we've confirmed that this filter is the one that's causing our problem. We could leave it here because now it's fixed, but why have a filter that filters nothing? So we're just going to take it off. We're going to quickly look at the other sheets to see if any filters are hiding anywhere else. So we've got this guy up here. It's in italics. That's always a clue that that's something that Tableau generated. And you might be wondering, well, why is that action there if we cleared all the actions? These are left over from any time you've used actions in the dashboard. It automatically creates that whether you clear the action or not. It's not doing anything, but for clarity, we're going to get rid of it because it won't change anything. Go through, Try not to make anybody dizzy by clicking. Get rid of these guys. Okay, so we're down to 0. Now we need to actually make this thing functional. So the first thing we'll go back to is that executive overview filter. And we'll use our use as filter shortcut. It's filled in, so we know it's working. That automatically makes it a select filter, which is really nice because we don't have that hover problem we were having before. We also know that they wanted to be able to drill down by state. So let's do that. What happens there? Okay, everything changes, including the executive overview. I don't think that's what we want. So we're going to go back into dashboard actions. And this, if you were trying to untangle, if you were like, nope, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to be strategic and just make quick little changes, this is how you would do that on your dashboard. You'll see that the filter 1 and 2 have been generated. And we're looking for the one on the map. So we're going to edit that. We're, of course, going to rename it. If you take anything away from this talk, it's that you need to rename things. No filters or calcs or sheets should be nameless. And we're just going to uncheck executive overview so that it's not affected by our filter. We're going to make sure it's on select, which it is. We saw that happening. And that when you clear the value or clear the selection, all the values come back, which is kind of typical filter behavior. Click OK. While we're here, because I'm obsessed with it, let's rename this one. Filter by overlord. Do a quick check to make sure it's functioning the way we want it to, which we did. Great. So now if you click on a state, everything else changes, but the executive overview stays the same. Great for our CEO who just wants to see who's on top. Awesome. Next, we want a little more information to show up on our product list. Right now, if you click the categories, it doesn't change anything. So we're going to create one more filter, and this one is my favorite kind of filter. I'm going to call it Show Products. It only happens when you interact with the product categories, and it only affects the product list. And here's my trick. I just learned this like 2 months ago. I was pretty excited. Oh, notice that this went to menu. I know menu is helpful for some filters, but it can be really confusing because it means you put a link in the tooltip, and that's how you get the filter. We just want to select. But instead of show all values, we actually want to exclude all values when you clear the selection. We know that this dashboard's really busy. It's got a lot of information on it. So let's change our product list filter so that when you aren't digging down into categories, you can't see the products. You only can see the products if you want more information. I'll show you what that looks like. So let's pretend we're Lex Lethal. He wants to know what's going on in Louisiana. And let's say he wants to know what's happening with atmospheric vehicles. Armored blackbirds, are doing really well. Great. And then if you clear that, which you do before you start, nothing shows up in your product list. So you've given yourself some space and some breathing room on your dashboard. You don't just have a list of text that people have to figure out if that's what they want to read right now. All right. So we've got, let's review. We've got working joins. We've got calculations that are functioning properly. We've got filters that are functioning properly. Our numbers are correct. This is fantastic. And so we're done, right? This is beautiful. It's ready to go. We should just hand it off to a CEO. They'll be so pleased. Yeah? No? Okay. Probably not, right? This is ugly. And it's not very functional. Did you notice how in order for Lex Lethal to kind of go in there, he clicked over here, and then he went down here to the map, and then up here to the categories, and then the product list showed up over here, and there wasn't any flow. It wasn't clear what you needed to do. That map still says map. So back to our superhero success, polish your dashboard. And even more than polish, make it functional. Make it easy to use so that people can do a 5-second and a 5-minute version, not a 15-minute, I'm so lost and I don't know what I'm looking at. Through the magic of TC, which is a magical place, we're going to go from this to this. It's like a cooking show. Put in a raw chicken and you take out a bird in 30 seconds and it's beautiful and it's so amazing. So let's talk a little bit about what's changed and why this is not just something to make it look pretty, which it does look pretty, but why this actually makes it not a broken dashboard anymore. Because I think we can all agree that that last dashboard, yeah, the numbers were right, but it was still broken in terms of it wasn't really doing what somebody wanted it to do. It wasn't showing the most important things. So let's take a look at that. And we're going to do that by going through the 10 best practices for effective dashboards. This is a white paper that's available on Tableau. It's really, really good. It's got tons of other information in it. I like to use it as a checklist. And again, you can use it when you're creating your own dashboard or when you're trying to fix another one. So, know your audience. I know I've pounded that into the ground, but it really is one of the most important things before you even get to bug fixing and all of that. This dashboard knows its audience. It uses one of my favorite tricks, which is to use questions on your dashboard. It's incredibly obvious and easy to figure out what it's trying to tell you because it tells you what it's trying to tell you. Who's winning the profit battle? It's right there. Which states are hurting profitability? What products are losing? It's all right there. Super, super simple. The next one is consider display size. Well, we of course know that all overlords use their desktop computers all the time. And so we were able to just kind of use the nice big space. But you obviously want to think about, is this something that's going to be viewed on mobile? Would we want to make this smaller or format it differently or include different information for a different audience? That's really important. Plan for fast load times. Also really important. We did that by kind of removing some of the vises that are showing up, removing some of the marks. I'll keep showing you how we did that. And again, performance can be a really big issue when it comes to broken dashboards. So I encourage you to get more information if what you're finding is that your dashboard is taking a really, really long time to load. Ours obviously is just loading like that, so it's great. Leverage the sweet spot. So studies show that people tend to look at computer screens from the top left to the bottom right. So you want your most important information to be in the top left. And that's what we have here. We've also made that top left spot super, super bright. You may remember that our first dashboard had a bunch of numbers. If you were trying to figure out who was winning, you had to 26 is bigger than 14, and they weren't in order. This is in order. And instantly I can tell that Legendary Burning Bird is winning. I can tell by how much. If I want the exact amount, I can see that. It's really quick and easy. So we've leveraged that spot. And also, since we have two audiences, that is the most important thing for our second audience, which was that CEO level. That's all they want to see. It's right there. It's the first thing they'll look at. They don't have to go hunting for it. We know we want to make CEOs happy. Limit the number of views and colors. I admit I added a few more colors because I really like colors, but they are branded now, so they match our store and our superheroes, and they're coordinated. So Legendary Burning Bird, you've got a nice correlation here that you know that that's clearly their area of the country over on the other side. These colors also relate. There they go. There they relate. That's what I'm looking for. So we can tell that things that are kind of orange over here, it's really easy to look in the profit and see when it switches to profitable rather than not profitable. Those colors correspond across the bottom. So that creates a nice correlation there. Ooh, throwing things. Add interactivity to encourage exploration. So that was a big thing that we did here, and again, it's a really big part of broken dashboards because filters and actions are one of the things that can really trip you up. So we showed it before, but we'll show how it looks even better right now. So Lex Lethal wants to go into Louisiana and take a look at different products and see how they're doing. This over here is actually sorted by profit, so he can see that Splendid Balls, blue flame, is doing okay. Actually, he's doing pretty well. So that's great. Good for him. Let's see what's happening to Captain Miracle. Where is that? My geography's terrible. Pennsylvania. Sorry, people from Pennsylvania. I didn't know what your state looked like right away. So anyway, again, really easy to play with. I want to click. I want to get more information. When I click, the things happen that I expect to have happen. Expectations, that's a huge part of dashboard design and fixing broken dashboards. Format from largest to smallest is just a hint for you when you're trying to do things like change the font and the size. You want to start at the workbook level and then work your way down. And that's honestly just to not make you crazy, because I have definitely gone down the path of formatting this tiny thing and this tiny thing and then realizing I want the font for everything to be different and then I have to go fix it again. So this is just one of those things to help you with that. And I can just tell you that is what I did to make this dashboard, but that's kind of hard to show. So leverage tooltips, the story within your story. So one thing you may notice is that we don't have return sales here anymore. Get rid of that. It was taking up a lot of valuable real estate. It was also the last question on the list. Didn't seem to be super related to the other questions. So we made an executive decision. We might regret it, but we decided to take it off. But we're like, we still needed that information there, right? So it is still there, but it's in a tooltip. So if people need the information, it's available, and it's available right there, but it's not taking up any of our valuable real estate where we want to be able to actually see what's going on. Now, again, dashboard process, iterative process. We might show this to people. They come back and say, no, return sales is actually really important. Make it half the dashboard. Okay. And then we would do that. But for now, we decided to move it to a tooltip so that the information was there, but not taking up a lot of room. Eliminate clutter. So we've already talked about how we've eliminated visuals or vises themselves. We eliminated that product list so you don't see a lot of text until you're ready for it. But you'll also notice there aren't a lot of legends cluttering up the screen. Tableau defaults to having all your legends down that right side, which means that they're not always visually connected to what they actually go to. So we moved some of them so they are down next to the thing that they actually matter. And we also got rid of ones we didn't need. So that makes things simpler as well, which is helpful. And last one for visual best practices is to test it, which again seems really obvious, but it's a really important step. Make sure that you get a beta tester, find a friend, and make sure, again, you test it on the type of screen that that person is going to be using. Before I did this presentation, I made sure to test what my dashboards looked like on giant screens, because obviously on my laptop, I wanted everything nice and small so I could see it. You guys should see what this looks like on my laptop. It's insane. But in order to have it on a big screen, I needed all the fonts to be like size 20, which on a laptop looks stupid. But here it looks great. And so you want to make sure that however your audience is going to be using it, you want to test to make sure it's working for them. There we go. So we reviewed a broken dashboard. We listed the problems. We made a plan. We started fixing. We changed our plan. And then we started polishing our dashboard so that it was actually helpful. And just as a reminder, let's just take a trip back. There's where we started. So pretty. And there's where we ended up. And we did that in an hour. It's amazing, just like cooking a chicken. It takes no time at all. But think of what you could do in an hour, right? So actually, that's what I want you to do. Take a moment, think of a dashboard that's in your life right now, one near and dear to your heart that's hurting your heart because of what it looks like. And turn to the person next to you and tell them one thing that you think you now might be able to change about it. Don't try to fix the whole thing right now in 2 minutes, but just turn to your neighbor and tell them one thing that you think you might be able to change that will make it just a little bit better. I'll wait. Go ahead. All right. Thank you to everyone who's friendly and talking to their neighbor and staying with me for just a few more minutes. I appreciate it. So I just have a couple more things for you, and then I promise I'll let you go even a few minutes early. And then you can keep talking to the new friend that you just made. So like I said, lots of resources. You're not alone, and you're not becoming a superhero all by yourself. I'm going to have resources for every section that I went through. I've got resources, specific help files, blog posts, things like that that'll be available. And then, of course, there's always what Tableau is here to help you with. White papers, the support team, who's amazing, help, and the knowledge base. Oh, there is no repeat. You guys are the repeat. Oh, great. And you've been amazing. Please complete the session survey. It's super helpful. As I mentioned before, I teach a community college class on Tableau, and I also do Service Corps, and so I work with real-life people all the time, and the more information I get about how real people are using stuff and what problems they're facing, the better. It keeps me grounded from my training world, where I get to design things in a beautiful blank open space where nothing is ever wrong. So please give me that feedback in the app. And then, of course, our conference organizers use that to figure out what we should do next year and what kind of talks are helpful and all that. So it's really important. I'm sure you're hearing that from all your speakers. So at this point, I dub thee a dashboard superhero. If I had a sword, I would do this. You are ready to take on the villains of poor dashboard design. You are ready to wow the masses with your skills and your strength. You're ready, like period, ready. So go forth and fight the good fight. Thank you.